Hello and welcome to Property Fundamentals. This is the channel to get up-to-date property investment information for cities across the UK. First of all, we'll analyse the data. Then, we'll identify the best areas to invest in. In this video, we'll look at Crawley in 2023. Here we have the mean sold property price by ward for detached properties in Crawley. Generally, the most northern and southern wards are the cheapest to invest in. These are the sold prices for the semi-detached properties. The wards of Three Bridges and Furnace Green are particularly expensive in comparison to the rest. With terraced housing, the wards towards the east are generally much more expensive than those to the west. For flats, the ward of Broadfield is particularly cheap. Interestingly, the ward of Tilgate, which is next to it, is very expensive, so this may be an interesting trend to explore. And finally, we have the combined sold prices for all property types. The overall price trend for Crawley is that the eastern wards are the most expensive and the western wards are far cheaper. This is a map of the public transport routes in Crawley. A key landmark is Gatwick Airport, which is situated within Crawley. Gatwick is connected to the train lines which provide excellent transport links to London. The obvious downside of close proximity to an airport is the noise and light pollution that will exist nearby it. One landmark to note is the train line which runs from north to south. This train line is important as it seems to separate Crawley in terms of affordability and also desirability. We will explore this further in the later parts of this video. These are the Ofsted ratings for schools in Crawley. Generally, the schools to the east are good, and the schools in the centre of Crawley have mixed ratings. Here are the institutions of higher education in Crawley. Interestingly, there are institutions throughout the whole of Crawley, which means there may be multiple opportunities for student-leds. The dark blue areas show places which have a flooding risk within Crawley. The northern part of Crawley, near Gatwick Airport, seems to have a higher risk of flooding. The rest of Crawley seems to have a smaller flooding risk, particularly near local rivers. With burglary over a 3-month period, the ward of Three Bridges, towards the centre of Crawley, is the worst affected. For universal credit, the south-eastern part of the city has the lowest number of claimants. Finally, for housing benefit, there is a very clear distinction between the east and west of Crawley. The train line, which was previously discussed, seems to separate the areas of high and low claimants. Now that we've looked at the data, we can now analyse it to find the best areas within Crawley to invest. Before this, if you haven't already, I'd recommend you watch my other video which explains how to interpret this analysis. The map below shows the desirability of the various wards within Crawley. Data from the housing benefit claimants, universal credit claimants, burglary data, flooding and schools have been collated to give an overall picture of which areas are desirable and which are not. One interesting desirability metric in this situation would be noise pollution, but in the absence of this data, we can use the relative proximity to Gatwick Airport as a rough indicator of this. The general trend for location desirability within Crawley is that the eastern part of the city is very desirable and the western parts are not. The separation between the desirable and undesirable areas is separated by the train line which runs north to south. The city centre seems to be particularly undesirable. The table below shows the results of average property prices for all property types. It is ranked from most affordable to least affordable. This table below shows the quantified results of the desirability ranking. Generally, the wards which are the cheapest are the least desirable, and vice versa. We are looking for exceptions where a desirable area is cheap, as this is an area which may provide a high return on investment over the long term. These cheap but desirable areas will become more obvious when we visualize the data. Here we have a visualization of the average property prices against location desirability for the wards in Crawley. The data shows that most wards are as expected because the least desirable wards are cheap and the most desirable wards are expensive. At the most expensive range of the market, the ward of Maidenbower seems to be a good opportunity for a very desirable area which is not as expensive as other desirable areas. In the mid-level affordability range, the ward of Ilfield is a good option because it is more desirable than other areas that are only slightly cheaper than it. Finally, at the bottom end of the market, the wards of Brewbush and North Broadfield, and also Broadfield, are interesting opportunities. They are extremely cheap, and their desirability is better than areas which are around 30k more expensive on average, such as Northgate and West Green, and also Gossip's Green and North East Broadfield. Thank you for watching this episode of Property Fundamentals. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you again next time.